Welcome back, everyone. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about what it means to be a psychic medium and how and why we all used to be psychic medium and still can be. I'm also going to share a quick little story about one of the psychic medium insights that I gave to a woman who was a massage therapist when I was receiving a massage. So, right now, I care less about what I look like or how attractive I look. I'm rebuilding. And I want to just get into it and share this with you. So, when I was a little girl in the 1960s, the training that I had with my grandmother started with me at the age of 4. And she began telling me about nature and omens and symbols and how to read and understand what the animals were saying when you walked outside, not by strictly defining it, but by teaching me how to have a unique presence and an ability to listen. And then one of the things she taught was you can hear the ancestors. And it was matter of fact, it was actually kind of on the firm side, and not that it wasn't loving, but it just wasn't like soury or sappy sweet rather. And I looked at her and I was like, because I was pretty young, I was under 10. And we learned how to do readings of all kinds, including card readings for symbols, going into a trance state. One thing about my home, I know that I'm recording this on November 17th, 2024, and it is a sun day. It's a day of the sun. No one in my family, not my parents, my sibling, my aunts and uncles, my cousins, my grandparents, my step grandparent, no one in my family in any way ever wore a cross, talked about God or religion. It wasn't even mentioned, it wasn't demonstrated, there were no symbologies, I didn't see any of it. They weren't Luciferians, they weren't Satanists, they weren't anything, but they were very aware that most of our real knowledge, the narrative that we had been told, was absolutely false, and that most of the knowledge had been occulted. Point over this way, actually, this way with my finger. Occulted. And that's the symbolism that sits on your dollar bill, even today. So, with that being said, aforesaid here, before I get into it, just here a little bit, one of the things that my grandmother talked about was around the age of 10 and 11 and 12. She took me to the Rosicrucian Museum. We talked about the ancient Egyptians, and we talked about some of the mythologies, and I was taking and learning mythology in school at that time as well. So that kind of dovetailed, and the Greek mythology is typically what's taught in schools, right? Not the Egyptian Kemetic, you know, alchemical science, that is actually predating anything that could be construed as Western modern science, which is actually also partially obscured and lied about. But when she took me around to look at other women that were called psychics, psychic mediums, paranormal researchers, she was personal friends with Zechariah Sitchin. She was personal friends with Dr. Ian Stevenson, who was doing all the NDE work, the near death experiences, and traveling the world to interview children. Excuse me 1 minute. My home is really, really on the warm side, so. And she taught me, she said, you'll notice that most of these people are performers. They do this for money or for power or for ego or for any number of reasons, right? And they give the clients, the people who are paying them, the hard earned money, right? They give them very, very limited information, most of which they're just randomly gathering from the field, easily sensing, which anyone could do. So I learned what the art of fishing was what she called it. She just called it fishing. She said they'll be fishing. So they'll start with picking one thing from the field or one thing that's obvious about you, or you came because it's about your little boy or about your husband or about your grandparent. You really want to hear from your grandmother. So they already know, okay, it's a female, it was an older woman, it's someone that you're close to, you care enough to have come here. And they start putting body language and, basic logistics and analytics and stuff like that into play to give you a reading, right? When I had my physical massage business up, as I mentioned before, from February 1st of '03 until after the scamdemic, I gave people insights on at the very least, a weekly basis. So if you figure on average about 1 to 3 or 5 clients a day, depending on the day, the time of year, January would go really light, other times would go really heavy with clients. But I never turned it into a fast food business where I was just, flustered. I wanted to give each person really individual attention, and that's why I got the tattoo on my arm that says "Blessed Love," which doesn't look as good now that I've had the accelerated aging from all the stress. So one woman came in and she was coming to me. I didn't know her. She'd moved from out of town and I won't give away too many details so as to protect her anonymity. But she came several times and she really just loved my massages, and people bought her a couple of gift certificates to come to me. And then after my son transitioned from a physical body and died in, this language, word, sound, power, she mailed me a 1 hour gift certificate for a massage with her. And I thought, oh my goodness, if you only knew what was going on, it wasn't just 4 years of heroin and opioids and horrific running to the emergency room and losing a couple of years of sleep, losing my habits that were well in place. I was steeped in health. Couple of years of chronic stress will take a huge toll on you if you've got really good habits in place. But then it was going to the bank and finding out that they were not going to refinance the HELOC that we had that was a home loan. And so here it was. I just did the obituary, the celebration of life, prepared all the food, figured out the particulars for my son's death, which I wasn't expecting. I'm in chronic physical health degenerative state, like worse than any of my clients that I've ever worked with. And now the bank is telling me you've got 11 months to completely remodel the house and have it sold. And it's during COVID. And I had no one to help me, right? Or you can just take the easy route out right now and just sign this piece of paper stating that you'll do a voluntary, surrender, repossession, whatever you want to call it, right? I said, I had a credit score of over 800 and I've worked a business for 18 years and I've consistently never been late on a payment. How could you do this? And she just said, that's just the numbers. So I'm not turning this into a pity party or trying to share too much about what happened, but just to give you um, a thumbnail on just a part of the stressors that hit me. And I believe that some of these are not just coincidental. So I had this gift certificate, and it's 6 months after. It wasn't 6 months because the pandemic hadn't started. So it had to have been about 3 months after my son had died. My whole body was physically shaking. It's still shaking a little bit on the left side. I'm exaggerating right now, but my whole body was physically shaking. And I was dealing with extreme health weakness, son's death, putting on the events, dealing with, his body and what are we doing to, what are we going to do with it, and all the incessant urgent comments, which never really needed to be that way. Writing out his obituary, which just about absolutely flattened me, because you're trying to write something extremely thoughtful and amazing, and at the same time you're just in the most absolute state of being choked, just stunned. And now the lady at the bank is going, oh, I can't even imagine losing a child. Oh my God, I can't even imagine that. Well, I feel like I'm going to sneeze. Hang on. If you need help or you want to just do the voluntary foreclosure, that's what it was, not repossession, foreclosure. Let me know. You can come on in and sign the form and we'll just take possession of the house. I'm like, wow. So I'm going to walk away completely broken, no family. The pandemic was just beginning. It was just being launched. And now I'm just going to give up 18 years of living at home. And I heard my son's voice and he said, Mom, you wanted out of Cloquet. I'm going to help you do that. And I thought, boy. One of my clients miraculously called and said, can I take you out for a cup of chai or tea? And I just said, I really don't know what I'm going to do. I'm absolutely not a person who's capable of remodeling a home. I just don't know how to do it. And it needs everything at this point because everything had been let go. I'd even taken the bathroom door off so that when he overdosed, I could get to him just lickety split and really quick, right? So this beautiful woman offers me, she had just opened a practice and I think she wanted to see if I wanted to trade and go to her as well. I thought, oh my gosh, I need human touch so much right now. I just need calming, I need loving touch. And she strikes me as, I hadn't had a massage from her ever. But she, seemed to me to be someone who was very empathic and sensitive and compassionate. So I drove over to her shop, which wasn't very far. She was working in a chiropractor's office. And I laid on the table and I said, I'm sorry, but I'm just shaking from head to toe. I just have way too many things going on with my health, loss of my son, loss of the home. And now I'm having to remodel it 24/7. I mean, we're pulling up tiles and sticky tar on the kitchen floor and shopping for the best deal on a shower. I was also putting in paperwork for the self-employment, unemployment, so I could get some money coming in to do the repairs and trying not to panic that I was going to have to leave with two huge dogs and a small dog in my also very, very beat up vehicle, which took a big hit, took a big toll on it. So everything gets let go when you're in an emergency crisis, or in my case, I rode hard for my son and that was my choice. So the choice I made, this is a choice I have to accept, is that it accelerated my aging and I'm working to counteract that in a positive way. So I laid down on her table and she said, really just try to just relax. I'm going to just, is there anything special you want? And I said, no, I just want to close my eyes. She started me face up on the table. I usually start my clients face up as well. And she said, just try to relax to the best that you can. I said, I just need to like just close my eyes and spend some time with my son because you know how she knows she and many, many other people in Cloquet, Minnesota knew about my reputation, that I was not a performer, but an educator, and that these were freely given during sessions and sometimes walking around like the one I told you about in New Mexico. So as I laid down, almost immediately, closed my eyes, she puts an eye pillow, warm eye pillow on me. She starts to touch my scalp. And immediately my son pops in with a big bright sun behind him. And when I say pops in, what I mean is that I refer to it as my arena at times. My eyes are closed, but I'm living inside of the VR. So we have the VR that we see with these two cameras that are our eyeballs, and we have the VR that's actually going on internally. So he pops in and she goes, pressure okay? And I'm like, oh, I'm fine. And next thing I know, here's the psychic medium part. Her brother pops in. Now, I don't know if she has a brother. I don't know if she has a sister. I don't know really much about her, except that I know that her mother is deceased, because we'll go over that in another video that I'm going to do about that. So I get the feeling, the strong feeling, like the strong knowing, this is her brother. So I see a man who's probably in his 40s, from about his navel, his waist up, in my arena, inside, right? It's inside. To me, that's the perspective of it, of sensory perception. He's in a flannel shirt. He looks really rough. There's a lot of darkness under his eyes, like there were under mine 3-4 years ago. A lot of dark circles around, like he's seeing too much. And he's very quiet. He's not saying anything. And next thing I know, I'm just kind of zooming in inside of myself, zooming in, so to speak, to see like, what are you wanting to tell me? I'm kind of frustrated because I wanted to visit with my son, right? This is just months after he died, and I only had a couple visits with him to that extent. So I'm thinking, she just completely usurped my son coming in. This must be pretty important. So I said, hey, said her name. I said, I know I told you I was going to be quiet and visit with my son, but your brother is here. She goes, what? I go, I'm just going to give you the best I can without putting my interpretation on it. I said, he's very weird. I don't know if he's dead or alive. I don't know anything about him, as I told her later. I'm telling you now. I said, he's got a button down flannel shirt on. He is very weary, like he's seen a lot during his life. And I said, now he goes like this to me and he shows me a tooth, just a tooth, right? Okay. So he's not talking like some do. He just shows me the tooth. And he shows me a few other things which I won't share because they would be way too personal and they would be identified or possibly could lead to being identified. Let's take a sip here. And I told her, I said, that's what I'm going to give you. That's what he wants me to let you know. And I shook and I cried. And she did the massage for an hour and a half because she could tell that I was beyond needing it. Yeah, get off this girl. We all used to be psychic medium. We never needed to call it psychic medium. It actually bugs me just like it does psychic reading. But for purposes of the video, for people to understand what I'm talking about, it's a well-worn shoe. It's a well-worn word, so to speak. I've given hundreds of these. The difference between someone who's fishing is they're going to keep asking you and just give you little tidbits in the field. Tidbits that you actually carry in your own energetic field. You see, there's fields upon nesting fields. As I used to tell people in the early 90s, I'm very, very, very etheric. I'm not gifted. I'm not any different than you, except that perhaps I grew up during a different time. I had different upbringing. I was taught to predictably use these as my compass, my guide, my understanding of life. Okay, let me just kind of get myself in the chair. It's so hot. I got that fan on. It's like 75, 80 in here. It's ridiculously warm. Someone who's just picking little pieces and snippets from the field, they shouldn't call themselves a psychic medium. I met a woman a couple months ago and I said, so you're going to go and work from home? I said, well, I'm just kind of curious. What are you going to do? And she said, well, I think I might be a psychic medium. I thought, oh, just keep your mouth shut. Don't say anything. Right? But if you're at the stage of development that you're just getting little tiny insights, that's a good stage. But it's not the stage to be charging people money and then fluffing it up, stroking their ego, right? Flattering them. It's kind of like with tarot cards. Well, you can't really go wrong, right, with most traditional decks. As long as you're not trying to do crystal ball type shit, okay? You're not trying to say, I can tell you your future. You cannot. You cannot. What you can do is tell people about probabilities. You can tell them that symbolically this is what you are seeing, but you cannot, with good accuracy, good faith, and with intelligence, tell someone that you can predict the future. I had a lady come in who was an apostolic. She came into my shop specifically for a reading, a card reading. I said, sure, I'll do it. And when she asked, will I outlive my husband? I said, I'm not a circus pony. I don't work in the carnival. It's not what I do. I said, I can ask questions around that, like how you should plan for your future type thing. What would be good, indications of, ideas you should be looking at for your future or for his future. But I can't, with reasonable faith and credibility and respect to myself even, do something like that. So as I have over the last couple of decades perused social media, a little bit on Instagram, not much, a lot on Facebook, quite a lot on YouTube, as I'm on right now, I have seen people that hold themselves out to be psychic mediums, and what they are giving you is not something I would pay for. It's not something I would rely upon. They don't have the experience. I'm not here to charge you. I don't charge anyone money for psychic medium or anything else Typically, when I'm going to do a consult, even on HTMA, I will do a quick 3-card reading on tarot cards just to say, is there something that this individual, I need to be aware of when I'm helping this individual? Is there something else I should know that maybe they're not going to be comfortable disclosing that is relative to the work that I'm helping and the service that I'm providing as a medicine woman and a shaman? I do them for myself. I have them in my cards. I've been reading since I was 10. I'm 63. So if you do the math, that's 53 years. So I'm confident, and I'm confident, right? This was gifted to me by a client, so my cards are in this little bag here. Yeah. And I have lots and lots of other sets, but I just don't use them. I don't do fancy card readings. I don't do a cardinal cross. I do a simple 3-card for most everything. So why, as we conclude here, how come we're not all psychic mediums anymore? And I don't dress the part of the medicine woman and shaman like I used to, right? I mean, I used to have a great deal of fun decorating my vehicle, right? This is a vehicle, and we like to decorate it the way we want to decorate it. I had beautiful long dreadlocks. Now I cut them all off, so I've got super short hair. I had beautiful glowing skin and really fresh, um, vibrant looking eyes. And that was good enough for me. Healthy looking fingernails without ridges. But I'm rebuilding. And I'm being candid and honest with you. There's nothing, absolutely nothing on my face. So I am what I am. And I'm thankful to be able to breathe as good as I can and have clean water and to have a chance to build back. And then when it's my time, it's my time. And I'm not afraid of that either. I just don't like the idea of any pain or being stuck in some sort of a Western allopathic crap hole where they put older people. That's not my choice. So, why did we all used to be psychic medium? People have been perceptively reduced. What I mean by that is now instead of being present, like I used to do all my research going to the library, getting books, sitting for hours and talking with elders who did the work before I did. I gleaned information from quality sources. Now it's rapid fire information on Goo Goo Gaga, which is called Google. In 1997, I learned about Google when I was in an Internet Resources for Business course at Cabrillo College back home in Santa Cruz in SoCal. Everyone is preoccupied with information and emotional stimulation, also known as the M word, which I don't think I can say on here. Been cut off from Quora. I lost a post because I use what I like to say is emotional self-pleasure. Because in 1960, May of 1960, the women's estrogen-based birth control pill was launched, just like the scamdemic was launched in 2020. And it filled people up with copper toxicity. And it created a plethora of mental health issues, including substance abuse, co-occurring issues like substance abuse. It created, together with brominated weed, the thyroid issues that we have today. I don't stop studying. I don't stop looking, listening, observing, watching, tuning in. I'm I'm a very highly attuned animal, a human animal whose kindred is wolf. I was born on a Tuesday. I'm very Mars. And if you're going to heal yourself, you should probably get to know yourself. So we all used to be psychic medium. It was just a natural component of life that we heard from the field. We knew about morphic fields. We knew about nesting fields. We knew about etheric ways. We knew about crops and soil. We knew about medicine. We knew not to farm our children off to stranger care and early forest and all that crap. That's complete junk. So I could have wondered to myself in conclusion here, that's a real conclusion now. I could have wondered to myself after all the stress that I had been through, what was just free flowing from me for decades and decades, right? This psychic ability, psychological, etheric ability, very, very, very high level, mostly unseen in today's world. I've looked and looked and looked and looked and looked worldwide to understand myself, what it is, why, and why it isn't today. Weaponization of the food industry, weaponization of the medical industry, weaponization with vaccines, weaponization with all kinds of things. Okay. When you do that, someone becomes sedated perceptibly. They're going to look at it like the only thing we know when you talk about hearing is, are you schizophrenic? In fact, when I took the dog around the block here just a short while ago, there was a man out there just launched and animated talking, to himself. And I thought, well, I'm not going to judge him. I'm sure he's not going to judge me, right? But it was kind of uncomfortable. I actually turned around and went the other direction because it went on for about 15 minutes as I stood there. And I thought, he's kind of aggressive with it, where normally if someone's just talking to himself, I see it so often, and I'm like, yeah, big deal. I'll just politely go around him because he was kind of taking up the whole sidewalk. That's what I have for you today, and I have a lot more when it comes to mothering, medicine woman, and shaman. I'd like to go into what is a shaman, what makes someone a shaman, how you develop into becoming a shaman, why you probably don't want to be a shaman, do not wish for that. Do not, because it's not an easy journey. It's not glamorous. It's not that, there's huge ecstatic joys. There are also traumatic pain and suffering that you won't want to go through. And you have to get real comfortable being alone. It's not you wouldn't there's a fake shaman that's trying to marry or has married someone who's a royal right now. That I can honestly and very easily say that would not be the case. You wouldn't be preoccupied sexually. You'd be preoccupied with figuring out how you're going to bring what you believe needs to happen in the world, which has been sedated and taken away, governed, destroyed, removed, suppressed, fake narratives. Thank you for joining me. Take good care and let me know what you like, because if you don't, I probably will just focus on the books.